I was 20 years old when I learned that silence is scarier than screaming. It happened during the summer before my senior year of college. I had taken an internship at a financial services firm downtown, a massive, soulless building filled with the hum of servers and the clicking of keyboards. It was supposed to be a stepping stone for my career. Mostly data entry and spreadsheets, but looking back, the only thing I remember from that summer is Alex. There were 7 of us interns, crammed into a section of the office known as the bullpen. It was a maze of low-walled cubicles. The walls were just high enough to hide your computer screen, but low enough that you never truly felt alone. Most of the other interns were normal college kids, just trying to survive the boredom. But Alex was different. He didn't fit the corporate mold. He was abnormally tall, with a frame that looked like it had been stretched out on a rack. His skin was a sickly pale color, contrasting sharply with the mop of greasy, unwashed, dark hair that hung over his eyes. But his appearance wasn't the problem. The problem was his fixation. Specifically, his fixation on me. It started about a week in. I would be typing away, focused on a spreadsheet, when I would feel a sudden shift in the air, a feeling of being watched. I'd glance up, and there he was. Because the cubicle walls were so low, and Alex was nearly 7 feet tall, he didn't even have to stand on his toes. He would just lean forward. His head would slowly rise above the divider like a puppet. He wouldn't say anything at first. He would just hang there, his neck tilted at a painful, unnatural angle. A frozen, plastic smile plastered across his face. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was wide, empty, and didn't reach his eyes. When he finally spoke, he put on a performance. He would drop his voice to a low, raspy whisper, trying to sound menacing on purpose. Working hard. ... Or hardly working. Ronnie, he would drawl, dragging out every syllable. Then, silence. He would just hold that stare. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. Just grinding. In the beginning, I laughed nervously. I thought he was just socially awkward, maybe trying too hard to be the funny guy in the office. I didn't want to be rude, so I played along. But he never broke character. He treated me like an audience of one. As weeks turned into a month, the visits became more frequent. It went from once a day to every hour. I would see his shadow stretch across my desk before I even saw him. He would lean over and mutter nonsensical riddles or bad jokes. But the punchline was always just ... silence. The other interns noticed, but they just rolled their eyes. To them, Alex was just the weird guy. They didn't feel the malice radiating off him. I did. I felt like prey. Thankfully, 6 weeks into the program, Alex was fired. He hadn't done a single day of real work. When I saw his empty desk that Monday, I felt a physical weight lift off my chest. I thought the nightmare was over. I was wrong. A few days later, I was at home, eating dinner alone. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a number I didn't recognize. Usually, I let those go to voicemail, but I was waiting for a package, so I tapped answer. Hello. Silence, but not dead air. I could hear breathing, wet, heavy breathing on the other end. Hello, I asked again, annoyance creeping in. Then, the voice spoke. It was Alex, but he wasn't doing the whisper anymore. He was loud, his voice vibrating with a manic energy. The tide is coming in, Ronnie. Pull your boat out of the water. My stomach dropped. Alex. He didn't answer. Instead, he let out a laugh. It started as a chuckle and erupted into a full-blown, unhinged shriek. It was the sound of someone who had completely lost their grip on reality. The line clicked dead. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking. I'd never given Alex my number. It wasn't in the company directory available to interns. I texted back immediately. How did you get this number? Do not call me again. The text bounced back immediately. Delivery failed. He had called from a landline. He was untraceable. I went to my supervisor the next day. He confirmed that Alex had no access to my personal files. That meant Alex had done his own research. He had hunted for my information. That week, I slept with the lights on. Every creak of the floorboards, Every rustle of the wind sounded like that laugh, but nothing happened. For a week, silence. I began to relax. I told myself he was just trying to scare me one last time. Then came Friday morning. It was 5 a.m. The sun hadn't risen yet. The world was bathed in that dark, gray pre-dawn light. I woke up suddenly, jolted by a sound from the backyard. It was a soft snap, like a dry branch breaking under a heavy boot. My bedroom was on the second floor, overlooking the yard. I crept out of bed, heart pounding against my ribs, and moved to the window. I slowly peeled back the edge of the blind. I almost vomited. Standing in the middle of my yard, perfectly still, was a silhouette. He was halfway between the tree line and my porch light. I recognized the posture immediately. The sticked-in frame, the messy hair. It was Alex. He wasn't looking at the house. He was looking directly at me. He knew exactly which window was mine. For a moment, neither of us moved. My brain couldn't process the horror of him actually being there. He had found my address. He had driven to my house. He was waiting. Then, he moved. He slowly tilted his head back, locking eyes with me through the glass. He opened his mouth and screamed my name. Ruuni. It was a sing-song, taunting scream. Before I could even react, he threw his head back and started laughing. That same hysterical, high-pitched laughter from the phone call echoed through the quiet neighborhood. He didn't care who heard. He wanted me to see him. He wanted me to know I wasn't safe. I scrambled back, grabbing my phone and dialing 911, my fingers fumbling over the screen. I ran back to the window and screamed, "I'm calling the police. Get away." He didn't flinch. He just stood there for a few seconds longer, drinking in my fear. Then, calmly, he turned around. He walked slowly, deliberately, into the dense trees behind my property, his laughter fading into the darkness. By the time the police arrived, the woods were empty. They patrolled the area, but Alex was gone. I never saw him again. He vanished from the city, from the state, from existence. But the police couldn't do much. He hadn't broken in. He hadn't technically threatened my life. I finished the internship, but I never felt safe in that city again. Even now, years later, living in a different house with new locks, I struggle to sleep. Sometimes, when the wind blows through the trees at night, it sounds just like a laugh, and I wonder if somewhere, out in the dark, he's still watching. They say you're never truly alone in a small town. I learned the hard way that this isn't a kampotitsa threat. I was 17, working my first real job at a local grocery store in a quiet corner of Vermont. It was the kind of town where nothing ever happened, and the most exciting part of my day was gossiping with the other cashiers near the front registers. I felt safe there. It was a mundane, brightly lit bubble. But bubbles burst easily. There was a guy named Sean who worked in the dairy section. It was 24, much older than me, with stringy hair that hung awkwardly around his face and eyes that never seemed to blink enough. At work, he was just the quiet, weird guy. But things changed when I was added to the employee group chat. It started innocently. A friend request, a direct message asking about the shift schedule. I replied just to be polite. But Sean didn't want to be polite. He wanted to be close. The messages shifted from work questions to personal interrogations. What music do you listen to? What are you doing this weekend? You looked cute today. I tried to ignore him. I didn't want to cause a scene at work, so I just ghosted the messages. But ignoring a predator only makes them bolder. The turning point happened on a Tuesday. I had spent the previous weekend entirely in my bedroom, binge-watching Stranger Things with the curtains drawn. I hadn't posted about it online. I hadn't told a soul at work. It was my private, lazy weekend. When I walked into the store that Tuesday, Sean was waiting by the registers. He didn't say hello. He just looked at me with a smirk that made my skin crawl and asked, "You like Stranger Things, right?" The blood drained from my face. I froze. "How'd you know that?" I stammered. I hadn't told anyone. He didn't answer. He just held eye contact for a second too long, that smirk widening, and then turned and walked back to the dairy cooler like nothing had happened. A cold knot formed in my stomach. He wasn't just texting me. He was watching me. That night, the real terror began. I was lying in bed, trying to force myself to sleep. My room was on the ground floor. The house was silent, settling into the night. Then, I heard it. Scrape. 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 It was a soft, rhythmic scratching against my bedroom window. It wasn't the wind. It sounded like a fingernail dragging across the glass. I sat up, paralyzed, staring at the blinds. I wanted to scream, but my throat was tight. I forced myself to crawl to the window and peek through the slat. Darkness. Nothing but the empty yard. I told myself I was imagining it. Paranoia. Right. 2 days later, Sean texted me again. This time, I didn't stay quiet. I texted him back, firm and angry. Stop messaging me. I am not interested. Leave me alone. His reply came 3 seconds later. It wasn't an apology. It was a threat. Okay. Good luck changing your address. My heart stopped. In one sentence, he confirmed everything. He had been outside my window. He knew where I lived. He knew my routine. I didn't wait. I took screenshots and went straight to the police with my father. We filed a report, and the next day, Sean was fired on the spot. A restraining order was issued. But a piece of paper can't stop fear. For months, I slept with a chair wedged under my doorknob. Every shadow looked like him. Every noise outside was him scratching at the glass. Eventually, the fear faded, but the lesson remained. Sean disappeared, but the psychological scar didn't. I realized that the monsters aren't always hiding under the bed. Sometimes, they are bagging groceries right next to you, smiling, waiting for you to look away. I've always loved thunderstorms. The sound of rain usually calms me down. But after what happened at that insurance office in Pennsylvania, the sound of thunder only brings back the memory of the flashlight beam and the chain on the door. I was 26, working late on a Friday. A massive storm front was battering the county, turning the sky black by 3 p.m. The rain was torrential, hammering against the roof so hard you couldn't hear yourself think. My manager sent everyone home early to beat the flooding, everyone except me and the new guy, Tom. Ben and Miss Kimpermu and me. He was in his 30s, quiet and unsettlingly present. He moved silently. You would turn around, and he would be standing right behind you, just staring. We volunteered to stay behind to finish some filing. By 5 p.m., the storm was violent. Lightning flashed every few seconds, illuminating the office in harsh, flickering white light. Tom was sitting a few rows away. He wasn't working. I could see him watching me over the top of his monitor. He hadn't typed a word in an hour. Then, the power died. The hum of the computers vanished, replaced by the deafening roar of the rain. The emergency lights kicked on, bathing the hallways in a dim, sickly orange glow. "I think we should leave," I said, my voice trembling slightly. I heard keys jingle. Then, the distinct sound of the front door deadbolt clicking shut. "It's not safe out there," Tom muttered from the shadows. "We should wait it out." His tone wasn't helpful. It was possessive. I grabbed my bag, my instincts screaming at me to run. I walked to the front, pretending to be calm. "I need to call my boyfriend," I lied. I pulled out my phone. No signal. The storm had knocked out the towers. I tried the landline. Dead. I turned around, and I nearly screamed. Tom was standing in the doorway, holding a flashlight under his chin. The beam cast long, distorted shadows up his face, making his eyes look like hollow pits. He was smiling. "I told you," he whispered. "Not safe. Primera vez que dabai," muttering that I was going to use the restroom. As soon as I was out of his sight, I sprinted to the back exit. It led to the employee parking lot. I pushed the crash bar. It didn't budge. Primera looked down. A heavy industrial chain had been looped through the handles and padlocked shut. We never used chains. Tom must have done this earlier. He had trapped us in here. I heard footsteps slowly walking down the hall. Thump. ... Thump. Ronnie. Hey, get out. Where are you going? I dove into the supply closet and pulled the door shut, holding my breath. I crouched in the dark, tears streaming down my face. I saw the beam of his flashlight slice through the gap under the door. He was right outside. He stopped. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stop my sobbing. The light lingered there for what felt like an eternity. Then, thunder shook the building, and the footsteps moved away. I waited 10 minutes, shaking violently. I knew I had one chance. I crept out of the closet and moved toward the front lobby. The scene stopped me in my tracks. The glass front door was shattered. Rain and wind were howling into the reception area, soaking the carpet. Tom was gone. I didn't question it. I didn't look for him. I ran through the broken glass, sprinting into the pouring rain. I fumbled with my car keys, dropping them in a puddle, screaming in frustration before finally unlocking the door. I sped out of that lot without looking back. Police found his car still in the parking lot. His wallet and phone were on the front seat. The security cameras had been manually disabled an hour before the power went out. Tom was never seen again. Some people think he had a mental breakdown and ran into the woods. But I know he didn't just run away. He had chained that door. He had cut the cameras. He was hunting. And sometimes, when the thunder rolls, Primera wand. Ife's still out there, waiting for the next storm to cover his tracks.